Morning, intuitives. It's Monday. I like Mondays. It's my day off from the country club because it's closed. And, well, some Mondays I work my 1099 job, but that all depends if there's a truckload of medical gloves being delivered that day, which today there is not because it came last Thursday for this week. So, a full day off, although I do have to go to see my therapist for PTSD here in about an hour. But I wanted to get this video in, and I see I lost 2 subscribers. I guess my last video offended somebody when I talked about how, rarity in itself does not make something valuable or special, and how it can be a negative. I mean, if you disagree with something I say, we can discuss it in the comments. I like a good debate. I was co-captain of my debate team and mock trial team in high school. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. But I wanted to do a narcissism video because it's been a little while, and I've talked about doing this video in the past and talking about, like, what the fuck do I mean by Chestertology. So for those of you that grew up with narcissistic parents, or a narcissistic parent, narcissistic extended family, or grew up in an area that is very much venerates, narcissistic people and the good old boys or old boys structure and worships the status quo like a god, this might hit home for you. And I want to, describe what it was like growing up where I grew up as the black sheep of my family. Being an INFJ plays into this to an extent as well, and just give you some background on what the hell I mean by Chestertology. So, I'm going to try to keep this as brief as I can, but I'm not really good at brevity. You should see the emails and letters I write people. 10 pages is a short one for me, or an email that's 15 paragraphs. I always feel the need to over-explain myself, and ENFJ friend of mine, she pointed that out to me last summer. A girl I worked with, actually quite younger than me, she was in college, and yet she could read me very well. And I taught her how to say no last summer, so it was a very mutual, beneficial work friendship. And I kept the creepy guys away from her because we would act as if, there was something going on between us. But because some scrawny little 20-year-old, it's like, oh, him, I don't know him. So it worked out for both parties, though there was nothing going on between us. If anything, we had like a big brother, baby sister friendship kind of thing. Anyway, Chestertology. So I grew up in Chester County, Pennsylvania, which is a middle-class suburb of Philadelphia, about 45 minutes away. And, most of my family had been there since the 60s. My family immigrated to this country from Italy and Ireland in the aftermath of World War I, mostly in the 20s. So, but my father was born in Philly. My mother was born in Chester County, lived here her whole life. But getting into the meat of this, the Chestertology aspect, I'm going to, maybe touch on my childhood, but I want to talk more about my adult life, because certain things as kids you don't notice, and trying to look at it retroactively isn't all that easy, trying to get in the mentality of a child. But basically, this area was, a typical Rust Belt town. It centers around Coatesville, city of Coatesville. That's where most of my family's originally from, and we live not far from it to this day. Steel town, Lucan Steel, biggest employer in the county until NAFTA, and a lot of other good union jobs went away in NAFTA, but the boomers don't believe that. That never happened, apparently, and everything's just as it was 30 years ago. And in this video, I am going to talk about, baby boomer supremacists. I want to make a disclaimer here. I'm not calling out all baby boomers. Just because you were born in those years doesn't mean you fall under this category. That's like saying just because somebody's white makes them a white supremacist. I'm calling out baby boomers who believe that they are a superior group of people, that they are better than all those born before and after them, not based on their merits or deeds or what they've done in life, but simply based on that they were born between 1946 and 1964. And these are views that have been expressed by, many members of my family born in those years and some of their close friends. They've expressed them for about 20 years now, so there's no doubt that they truly believe this. And I believe that that idea of baby boomer supremacism is wrong, it's discriminatory, it's bigoted, and it should be called out like any other type of supremacism, like someone saying, well, I'm superior because I'm male, or I'm superior because I'm white, or I'm superior because I'm in the old boys club. Those get called out, and rightfully so. But this, for some reason, they get a pass, as they have in most things most of their lives. And I find that curious. And as an INFJ, I want to know why. I want to solve the puzzle. But here in within my narcissistic family, it centers around my mother's older sister, who's the queen bee narc, and I did a video, INFJ versus the queen bee narc. You should check it out. I might put a link. And then pretty much, the other boomers of the family are sort of her lieutenants. And part of the reason why I'm not talking much about my childhood is because this got far worse in the early 2000s once my grandmother and the vast majority of the members of the World War II generation, who are not narcissistic, except maybe one, once they passed away, that's really when the, the boomers, especially the queen bee narc, my aunt, really upped her game because there was nobody left to call them out, to hold them in check. Whatever checks and balances were there, which, they didn't really keep them in check all that well. But once that was completely gone, yeah, it'd be like if Dick Cheney was able to eliminate the Senate and truly be the Senate. You know, we would have, the Galleria at Halliburton Square where his palace would be located today. So basically how my family works is what my aunt says is true by definition. She cannot be wrong. She is, the greatest person that has ever existed. She is perfection made flesh. If it comes from her mouth, it is by definition true. If she says something about you, you're not even allowed to defend herself because she just knows. She has I just know powers. If she thinks it, it means it's real. And, she is a very nasty person. She's very hypocritical. She's very backstabbing. She gaslights all the time. She uses flying monkeys, and she sees herself as better than everybody else. And she's not a feminist, by the way. She is a kept woman who believes that she's a millionaire, but believes she doesn't have near what she deserves. I mean, she worked as a secretary for decades, but she went to a business junior college for a year and learned how to type file and take shorthand, and thinks that puts her on par with people who have MBAs. And she's female, but she's very much in the old boys club. She's one of the token females, and they do exist. There are token females in the old boys clubs, at least in the modern day. I've encountered a few. True, it is mostly white males, but there are a few exceptions they let in the club to be like, see, it's not just white guys. We got a girl, or look, a black guy. Yeah, look, we have a black guy. Therefore, we're not an old boys club. Hi, Dr. Brain. No, Carson, you can't be president, but we use you as our token. That kind of thing. And in Chestertology, the status quo is unquestionable. Nothing ever needs to change. Everything is perfect the way it is. How dare you even question it? If you grew up in this area, you are told you must be Republican, you must be Christian, you cannot question the status quo, you cannot think for yourself. You are to stay in this area your whole life because it's like a high crime and blasphemy to leave the area, even though most of the good jobs left in the 90s. That's just what it's supposed to be. High school's king. High school are the greatest years of your life and relevant for the rest of your days because they say so. You're not allowed to question anything the boomers say. They are by definition right. Your facts, and you can pull up facts and charts and have truly vetted academic research. Doesn't matter. They just If they say now, it's no. It doesn't matter how much more Like, you could be talking about a subject that you're educated on that they know nothing about. It doesn't matter. They're by definition right, and they will back each other up. And if you're labeled a black sheep like I was, your only existence, your only purpose in life is to serve them. You are not your own person. You exist only as an extension of them to serve them. And basically what I mean by that is, if you are the black sheep in a Chestertologist family, if you are male, you are supposed to be like a landscaper or a tree worker, and you're supposed to treat that job like it's the military, and you never do anything else. And I'm proud to work 7 days a week, and and cut grass for baby boomers, because that's why I exist on this earth. Long may they reign. Or if you're a female, you can be a bartender or a waitress, maybe a secretary, but you should feel honored if a boomer guy puts his hands on you. After all, like, these are living gods. Like, the fact that they're even taking the time to look at a girl who could never be prettier than what a boomer girl was in her prime, that's an honor. This is truly what they believe. There's very little hyperbole in this. Of course, this is amalgamation of the thoughts and views and actions of many different people that I'm just trying to express as a group, though. So, if you are the golden child of a Chestertologist, you can do no wrong. For instance, my aunt's only son, he was born in 1968, so he's Gen X. He's the typical Gen X enabler of a boomer narc. He has not worked a full-time job since 2004. He mooches off of his wife, who is a very successful ER nurse, she's a shift supervisor. She's, like a really, really high regarded nurse who's, in the management roles in that hospital now. They have no children. So he sits at home, rides four-wheelers, drinks Crown Royal, and has many, many, many affairs, which is okay because it's him. And you are the villain if you call that out. And he's allowed to tell you you're crazy and you're not allowed to be a firefighter because, you didn't volunteer enough in Great Chester County and, moving out of the area. You can't just do that. So he can slander you however you want, and if you tell the truth about him, things in fact that he has bragged about over the years, open secrets, then you are a villain, and the queen bee might try to call the cops on you. Yes, I had the police called on me. Quote, as my aunt said, "You have to come and arrest my nephew. He told my daughter-in-law that my son's having affairs." And the cop's like, "Well, is he making it up?" She's like, "No, it's true, but he can't say that." It's like, man, that's not a crime. He's like, perhaps if it was libel or slander, you may have a civil case against him. He's like, but if he's telling the truth, there's no crime. She's like, well, don't you know who I am? Because she truly believes she is this person of authority, this royalty. When this woman goes on vacation all over the world because she's rich, she expects people all over the world in major cities to have heard of Chester County, a mere suburb of Philadelphia. And she gets all offended when people never heard of it, because to her, like, it's the center of the world. Like, this is, where the world is controlled by. And in Chestertology, it is a very insular world. And then before I get into that, I want to say, not everybody that lives in Chester County is a Chestertologist. That's like saying, that would be like me saying, in Clearwater, Florida, all people in Clearwater are Scientologists. No, they have a large and, well-known presence there and hold a lot of power. But, there are people in Chester County that aren't Chestertologists, including baby boomers. I encounter a lot of them at work. And there seems to be a phenomenon among who's a Chestertologist and who's not. For the most part, Chestertologists of all age are people who have only lived their whole lives in Chester County and would never leave, even for like a great job or for the girl of their dreams. Like, staying in that area and pretending it's still like it was in the 80s is first and foremost to them. So, I know plenty of boomers that aren't narcs, that aren't Chestertologists, and live in Chester County, but they've spent time elsewhere. Either they moved away for jobs at times, or they lived elsewhere and, got a high-paying job in the area, and that's why they came here, or they went away to college, or they were in the military, or, they married somebody who's from somewhere else. But the ones that are Chestertologists, for the most part, are the ones that this is the whole world for them. And this notion that something's wrong with like the majority of people in power, the establishment in this area, is not something just shared by me. Many people my age express these views, albeit 5 years after I started talking about it, and they all thought it was nuts, and most of them have moved away after being indoctrinated for 20 years to think that this is the only place in the world and that it's us if you leave. And I've known plenty of people, particularly Gen Xers, who moved to this area for work, and they're like, yeah, this isn't right. And I say this myself. I'm speaking as somebody who's lived in many places. I mean, to say like, because a Chestertologist would be like, well, everywhere's like this. This is just how the world works. It's like, no, State College didn't work this way. Pittsburgh didn't work this way. Arlington, Virginia didn't work this way. Toronto, Ontario didn't work this way. Sussex County, Delaware didn't work this way. Charlottesville, North Carolina didn't work this way. So, I've lived other places, and I know something's wrong here. And I've never had, even as an INFJ introvert, or perhaps I'm ambiverted now, I never had difficulty like finding like-minded people and finding at least a small group of people I could trust anywhere else I lived. I do here. Well, not always. I mean, I did have close friends growing up here, but they have all since moved away. When we were kids and stuff, they were here. They're gone now. They've long since took my advice and you know left the guy who enlightened them behind. A lot of people I did favors for and bailed them out of rough situations. And we owe you one. Yeah. Uh-huh. One didn't even pay me back for the tooth he knocked out. In his defense, it was an intervention, and he was quite drunk. I think I mentioned him before. My friend in the military, who his fiance left him for his commanding officer. Yeah, rough times. He was only 19 at the time. But in Chestertology, your will is not your own. The boomer gods decide what your path is. So, for example, if you are, no matter what you do, it's never good enough and you're never doing enough, even if you're doing twice what they did at the same age. Like, for example, if you're, say, a 15-year-old kid and you want to work a full-time job, you're trying to save for a car. Like, say you've been working part-time since you were 13, but now that you're 15, you might be able to get a full-time summer job, because at least in the early 2000s, nobody was hiring you 40 hours a week before 15. I'm pretty sure it was illegal to do so at the time. And you get a job full-time working grounds crew, good old manual labor. That's what you slaves should be doing, because you only exist to serve us, the gods. And you're working 60 hours a week, 7 days a week, even though child labor laws say you should only be working 44 hours a week. But hey, you exist to serve. And the gods like to play golf. This is for the gods. You're still not working hard enough. You take no vacations. Your only days off all summer, 7 days a week, were 3 days by doctor's orders, because you had your wisdom teeth that were impacted cut out. But, you should have toughed it out and went to work, even though it's like, well, I'm off to the Bahamas for a month. It's different for us. We are baby boomers kind of thing. That's Chestertology. So even if you do exactly what they tell you to do, go to college, any degree's a good degree, and you graduate with honors, the second you graduate, well, college doesn't mean anything now. I know we told you 3 years ago it was everything, but now it's worthless. Then 10 years after you graduate college, it'll be, well, you should have went into the trades. It's like, well, wait a minute. You're the same people that told me, that I was a fool for applying for firefighter jobs at 18, which is, kind of a trade. You get on the job training, you're doing a lot of like tradesman stuff. That was, that's for losers. Who wants to be, give me a second here. Who wants to be a 28-year-old fire lieutenant making 115 grand a year when you could be a golf course laborer making 37 grand a year, working 60 hours a week, 7 days a week instead of two 24-hour shifts, but you're doing it in the holy land of Chester County. So those are some examples of their logic. Yeah, apparently now, even though like everybody my age was told trades are for losers, apparently what we should have done now, because remember, reality changes with their thoughts and will. They say, the sky is purple, it'll change purple because they're just that powerful. Now it's, oh, well, apparently in like 2003, people my age should have went into trades because we should have figured out that there would be a lot of openings in those trades 10 years down the line. See, that's the other thing in Chestertology. Anything that's true at any time can be applied at times when that's not true. Like, for example, you know, well, in my day, people would just get a high school diploma and walk down the Lukens and knock on the door and start the next day. But you're too lazy to do that, and it's an excuse to say, well, Lukens closed in 1997. Well, we had to close because nobody your age was willing to work there. It's like, I was 10. Ah, excuses, excuses. That's apparently an excuse. It's like I was not legally allowed to work there at 10. Well, back in the day, not in your day, motherfucker. Anything, they can never, never, ever, ever be wrong, and they will defend each other to the death, no matter how deep they keep digging that hole. If you are the black sheep, you are by definition not allowed to be right, and they want to keep you in at your worst. If you are working a job you hate, making crappy money, and you're miserable, they will convince you all day long to stay in that situation because that's where they want you. Because if you're broke down, if you're miserable, if you have nothing going good for you, you're easier to control. Because it starts becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy that, oh, this is all I could ever do, and I guess they're right, and I'll just, embrace the suck, ooh, status quo. And they know they're corrupt, and they know they're wrong, and they know that, for a lot of them, their wealth and influence is built on the exploitation of others, and they love that. They get off on it. It turns them on. And no matter how much they get their way and how much they have, they want more and more and more. It's never enough unless they're gilded in gold and diamonds and paraded down the streets, being hoisted up on thrones and people blessing themselves as they are honored to be in the presence of people who in their minds are literally perfection made flesh. Like, they are the greatest that has ever been and ever will be, the pinnacle of, if not all just humankind and life in this world, but life in the universe. And they were just born that way. I mean, it was manifest destiny. So anything bad that they do is okay. Hypocrisy is a big thing in Chester County. Like, if you're an 18-year-old that's smoking a cigarette, a Chestertologist will sit there while smoking a cigarette and telling you how bad smoking is. But it doesn't harm them. See, they're, superior, I guess DNA, makes it's always different for them. Though they never explain why. It just is. And you're childish if you ask, well, how's it different? It just is. Stupid kid. Don't you know who I am? This can go into other aspects as well with their blatant hypocrisy. DUIs is a big one. So say you're at a Christmas function that you were drugged to, and of course you drove yourself so you can make your escape. If you're, say, 23 years old, and you're going to be stuck there for 3 hours, and you decide to have one beer as a 170-pound, 6-foot male like myself, so one 12-ounce beer, you're still under the legal limit. That's just how the whole body weight blood alcohol thing works. But they will chastise you to the end of the day. Now, but a boomer who's throwing back Manhattans like there's no tomorrow, and I gotta go home now, that's fine. See, it's okay for him to do that. He's a boomer. And really, you know how, like, scientists and doctors, those quacks say how your reflexes and your timing and how do you react to things slow down, not only with alcohol, but also with age, too. So I would assume it's even worse if you combine the two. No. He's fine. See, in the 70s, the rules were different, and this is actually what they said. I'm quoting here. In the 70s, it was okay to do this kind of stuff. So because he, was that age in the 70s, he's grandfathered into those rules. Like, that's not reality. Literally, one of my boomer relatives got stopped for a DUI and was like loaded, like 0.17, 0.18, like up there, like twice over the legal limit, more so, I think, and actually said, but I'm a boomer. I've been doing this for years. Like, actually expected the cop to be like, you were born in 1956. Oh, just get home, sir, and try not to hit any more. Don't hit any boomers on the way home. You got to take out like a Gen Xer. Who cares, But just don't hit any. Don't hurt any boomers. I'm sorry to have even questioned your greatness. They expected that. So if you're sitting here thinking like, oh, you're really just not being fair to these people. No, I'm just telling the truth, the things that they've expressed. In politics too, it's another point of hypocrisy. So the only acceptable thing to do politically is to like fall in line like a little good authoritarian and vote for who they want to. See, you're not allowed to complain about the status quo. And then they'll tell you, well, if you want to change it, get involved. And then when you get involved and you get like people that do the things that you want to do elected, you're bad for that too. There is no right answer. The only right answer is that our status quo is perfect, and you must accept and acknowledge its perfection because it's made by us. And anything that a boomer Chestertologist does is by definition the greatest thing that's ever happened. Nobody could ever outdo it. It is the pinnacle. They were anointed to do it. It was destiny. And if you question it, even if, it's blatantly wrong, then you're wrong. Anything that conflicts with their views are wrong. Anything that acknowledges that things in Chester County are not the same as they were in 1990, that's blasphemy too. And like I said, of course, moving away, they will root for your failure if you're a black sheep. When I got hired by the Arlington County Fire Department in November or December of 2019 is when I got my official signed letter from the fire chief saying, you're in the next class. They were all rooting for it. Like, you can't get that. Like, how did you get that job? I'm like, well, I, went through the hiring process, which took about a year, and there was about 10 steps to it. I've talked about the hiring process in other videos, but they're like, but, 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 but there's these, volunteer guys here. I'm like, you have to apply. But that's not how it works. I'm like, no, that's exactly how it works. Like, no, you can't be. Nobody gets paid in the fire academy. That's not how it works here. It's like, well, that's literally how it works everywhere else. And to call out their precious good old boys club, that's like you're like insulting the Pope at that point. So to give an example of that, in 2017, I was working actually the same job at the country club I'm working now, and another side job. But I was applying for environmental science jobs, and I was told of one that was within the county government. I had the necessary educational requirements and then some. I had not exact experience, but relevant experience in a similar field with some overlap. So I applied, and I later found out there were 70 applicants. Now, did I get an interview? No. Oh, and I should mention too, because they always like to say, well, you gotta go places and put yourself out there. Well, they had a statewide conference for this profession in Harrisburg, which is the state capital. It's about an hour away. So I went. I was the only person there seeking a job. There were many people there that went to the same university as me. You heard all these gray hairs going about, we need to get youth in our profession. We're all retiring out, this and that. There I am. And again, I was the only one, with my resume and all that. Well, do you know why I didn't get an interview for that job? Because the supervisor of this environmental science department, there was like 6 people under him, was given a phone call by his buddy who's a professor at Westchester University, better than Harvard because it's in Chester County. And 2 of his students were graduating in May, and he's like, well, could you give them an interview? Funny thing enough, to apply for this job, and the advert was very clear, the application period was February of 2017, and you had to have like an environmental science, biology, geology, a degree of that kind at that time to apply. Like not, oh, I'll have it in 3 or 4 months. No. You had to have it then and there to apply because they needed people like today. They had a couple retirements. And, so instead, good old boy shit, the supervisor didn't look at any resumes, held off hiring somebody until May when these students graduate. And remember, these are people fresh out of college, no experience. By the way, I graduated with honors from Penn State and like environmental science stuff. That Penn State's kind of known for that. And I had a minor in environmental soil science, which I could have gotten certification as a Pennsylvania soil scientist. This other kid who eventually got the job didn't have enough credits. I was also a teaching assistant for 3 semesters, and I took 500 level graduate soil science classes as well. But I'm not in the club. So nor myself nor any of the other 70 applicants who applied even got an interview. He interviewed only these 2 students recommended by his friend and hired one of them. And before anybody says like, oh well, it's probably an affirmative action hire. No, this kid was a white male, lived his whole life in the county. He was in the club. Yeah. Now, to give a contrast, after I wrongfully lost my firefighter job in Arlington, Virginia, and I was scrambling to find work in the middle of the pandemic in 2020 in the greater DC area with some of the most stringent lockdowns, one of the jobs I applied for was this very same job in Fairfax County, Virginia, the next county over from Arlington. They had over 200 applicants, so I had to go through 2 rounds of phone interviews and then 2 in-person interviews. I obviously ultimately didn't end up getting the job, but I was the guy told me it was down to me and 3 other people at the end. And this is with the same education, same credentials as in 2017. So in 2017, I don't even get an interview. And in an out-of-state, same job, I'm down to the final 4 with 200 applicants when it's flooded with applicants because of, the lack of jobs at the time due to the pandemic. Oh, and also this supervisor guy was alleged to have been taking kickbacks, for signing off on permits. He was fired a year later, but I'm the demon for calling him out. Him and all his underlings were fired for corruption. But, how dare you say that about a member of our precious club? He's in the club. He can do no wrong. He can do whatever he wants, and it's by definition good because he's in the club, and that is Chestertology in a nutshell. If you are in the club and venerated by the queen, of course, then nothing you do is wrong. If you do it or if you say it, it's by definition right because you're the one doing it. So for those of you that, perhaps experienced narcissistic families or lived in an area that celebrates, venerates, protects narcissistic people, big on the old boys club system, I hope this video enlightens you a little bit and lets you know that you are not alone. If sadly you've been through similar things, please comment below. My only advice really to get, how to fix this is go no contact. You're not going to fix an area that's that corrupt, that's that religious about the status quo. Just know that everything that they're telling you is either wrong or at best decades out of date, and what you think, probably what your intuition is telling you about what life will be elsewhere is true. And it certainly was for me. So no, don't let their brainwashing make you think that you owe the area you grew up in anything, or that, it's funny because long before I knew anything about narcissism or MBTI or any of this, say in like 2001, I used to, whenever they'd get all like, oh, this is the greatest place in the world, they'd be, oh, Chester County, if you're born here, you got to die here. So I knew something was up long before I knew any about this, and I'm sure many of you, if you get that feeling that something doesn't feel quite right, you're probably right. Something isn't quite right, and it's not normal, and it's not healthy. And all you can do, to seek normality, to heal, to live the life that you want to live, and perhaps put in the merit and the work to live, but are denied simply because you're not in the club or you dare to call out abusive and corrupt behaviors of the club. The only real answer is to get out. Get out, never look back.